I wanted to do something big, something massive that would really push me as a composer, a percussionist, a singer, an athlete, and a filmmaker. I had premiered many pieces of music in my career, but never as many as 30 in 1 month. And I had completed scores of bikepacking adventures, but I had never ridden 2,500 miles across the United States. The Sonic Divide is one large-scale performance art piece that brings together creative music, ultra-distance mountain biking, and film. I was born and raised in Idaho Falls, Idaho. My parents used to have a cabin up near the Idaho and Wyoming border. I spent a lot of my youth up there, skiing, snowboarding, mountain biking, hiking, just time in the woods. That entered my consciousness at a young age and has had a profound effect on how I live my life. Now I live in New Jersey, just 10 miles west of New York City, in a densely populated part of the world. Despite its reputation as an industrial wasteland, New Jersey actually has quite a few beautiful state parks and lovely neighborhoods. Bicycles have been a big part of my life from an early age. They were right there from the beginning when I used to tear around on my big wheel. And then when I got older, I raced BMX. And all through high school and college, I had a mountain bike, and that was my primary transportation to and from school and around campus.
The Great Divide Mountain Bike Route is a project of the Adventure Cycling Association, a 50,000-member nonprofit based in Missoula, Montana. The Great Divide is the longest unpaved cycling route in the world, stretching about 2,700 miles from Banff, Alberta in Canada to Antelope Wells, New Mexico at the doorstep of Old Mexico. With plenty of help, I researched the route back in the dry months of late 1994 through 1997. While plotting out the route, my overriding goal was to remain within 50 miles of the Continental Divide whenever possible. And we were largely successful with that, but the one reason the route meanders farther away from the divide in some cases is largely because of wilderness areas where mountain bikes are not permitted. And at other times, the Continental Divide itself just meanders all over the place. So that explains, some people wonder why it meanders so much and doesn't take a straighter line, but those are largely the reasons for the meanders.
The idea with the Sonic Divide was that I would ride my mountain bike 2,500 miles from the Mexican border to the Canadian border along the Great Divide mountain bike route. And that route crosses the Continental Divide 30 times. So I commissioned 30 composers, each of whom wrote a piece that I would perform at specific divide crossings. And when I got there, I would put my bike down, I would set up some audio and video recording devices, I would perform the piece and record it, and then get on my bike and keep going.
So the Continental Divide, it's a boundary between drainage basins. So you can think of a river. River systems have drainage basins. That's all the feeder tributaries that would bring water to that. In this largest scale, those big rivers like the Missouri, the Mississippi, or the Columbia, or the Colorado, eventually flow to the ocean. You take their tributaries all the way back. They have some starting point. And at that continental scale, it's called the Continental Divide.
The first lessons I had were on the electric organ, which we had in our house. And I took lessons for a few years, and I remember I got to a piece of music and I was having trouble with the rhythm. So my teacher at the time suggested to my mom that she get me a practice pad and some drumsticks so that we could focus more on rhythm. But once I got those drumsticks, I said that was it for organ, and I really dedicated myself to percussion. And growing up in Idaho Falls was a pretty great place actually to make music, because we had a youth symphony orchestra, we had an adult symphony orchestra, we had an opera company, we had a lot of different jazz bands and pop bands that I participated in, plus of course all the school bands, the marching band, everything. So by the time I was in high school, I was basically playing gigs or in rehearsals 5 or 6 nights out of the week. And then I ended up going to the University of Michigan for my undergraduate degrees, and then the Eastman School of Music for my graduate degrees. And it was really once I got into Eastman that I really got involved with contemporary classical music and experimental music, or the term I prefer is just creative music. I was just meditating as I was rolling along this dirt road here. A little bit about how it connects to this music that I'm doing. That's one of the things I love about experimental music and working with all these amazing composers and composing music myself is, we're always kind of looking out and looking out into space and looking out into these vast landscapes of the mind and the spirit. And man, it's just incredible the way the music and the writing is connecting on this adventure. It's just amazing. I've been singing and drumming in the wilderness for many years now, and I love it. I've been lucky in my career so far that I've been able to perform in some of the world's nicest concert halls. But if I had to choose, honestly, I'd prefer to make music in the woods or the desert. There's a tremendous feeling of freedom and purity when I'm out there making music. I don't know, maybe I've been trying to recapture something that we've lost in our modern lives. But that experience was a big part of the inspiration for the Sonic Divide.
One of the things that is so important about this trip is maybe Payton won't be performing for people, but performing for trees and animals and other life forms. And I think all life forms respond to vibrations. And that, of course, is what a musician deals with, is vibrations.
In some ways, I don't even think what he was doing is necessarily particularly new. It's new in the sense that people with his training and background and people that play within the community that he's a part of don't do things like this. But the idea of going on a journey and using music along the way is ancient.
The other thing that was a big inspiration for the Sonic Divide was my commute to work. I live in West Orange, New Jersey, and I teach at William Patterson University in Wayne, New Jersey. It's a 15-mile commute each way through some nice neighborhoods and with some good climbs. I do it several times a week, and each year I rack up about 1,200 miles just from the commute. It's a wonderful way to get pumped up for an exciting round of teaching. And it's also a great way to decompress after a long day. Any of the difficulties or frustrations I might have experienced throughout the day just evaporate as I pedal home.
Before the 1900s, everyone had to create their own music, and journeys were long. If you wanted to travel to another country, you were easily on a boat for a month or more, you know, and sailors would sing together. It helped people work together. People would sing to get through every aspect of their day. What's really cool about what Payton is doing is creating a reminder for us of this fundamental aspect of music making and its role that it plays in our lives.
When I'm at the university, most of what I do is teach and perform creative avant-garde music. So this pattern of pedaling and then making creative music and then pedaling again has become a part of my daily life. Along the way, I've found so many connections between the two seemingly disparate disciplines, and I was deriving so much joy from those discoveries that at some point I felt that I had something special, and I wanted to formalize it into a big project that I could share with the world through film.
Music doesn't have to be about a performer or an audience. It's just noise making, and it's something that, that we do.
The old stones listen. Wind soothes my tired body. Peace is from within.
My work for Payton is one of written instructions rather than in a musical notation form. It was designed to spirit Payton's creativity, not just as an interpreter performer, but as a composer. And it is in a series of instructions at its fundamental level to compose a haiku daily based on his traveling experiences of that day, so that at the end of the journey, he would have a series of his own creative reflections about what transpired.
The Great Divide mountain bike route is relentlessly difficult, and early on I nearly quit. It was only my second day and I was about 40 miles south of Silver City, New Mexico. The heat was getting to me and I started feeling dizzy and nauseous. Fortunately, I came across a ranch and the foreman graciously let me rest in the shade, and somehow I managed to pull out the GoPro as I was laying there. But I'll never forget that feeling of complete failure as I lay in the dirt and the heat, feeling absolutely horrible.
The heat was really getting to me. I was getting a little worried actually. There's just nothing out there, no shade, nothing. And it's got to be at least 95 degrees today. So I'm actually going to stay here for a few hours and just kind of recover and then head out when it hopefully starts cooling down a little bit. So that's the story. Getting my butt kicked here.
After about 3 hours, I felt a little better and kept going. But then I was immediately caught in this incredible storm with rain and lightning and wind so strong I got blown off the road. And then, suddenly, it stopped right when I hit a divide crossing.
Hi. Okay, so I'm gonna perform John Link's piece. I can't actually believe I'm doing this because I just made it through this incredible storm. You can kind of see it if I look over here. Fortunately, it's passed and I think I'm in the clear now, but it was unbelievable. I've never experienced headwinds like that. I was pedaling absolutely as hard as I could on the flats and going about 5 miles an hour. Absolutely incredible. So anyway, I'm here on the Continental Divide, so I'm gonna give it a go. Hopefully it won't start raining. Paki, tiki, paki, tiki, paki, tiki, paki, tiki, paki, tiki, paki, tiki. All right, take two on that. Ta. Let's get a rock. Let's get a rock. Okay. Here we go again. Taka dimi taki tiki taki tiki taki tiki ta taki tiki taki tiki taki tiki taki tiki taki 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 ta 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 taki tiki 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 taki.
The Gila Wilderness is one of the most difficult parts of the Great Divide mountain bike route. It's 185 miles of rough roads, steep canyons, and vast expanses of desert. There's very little reliable water and no food sources. When I rode through it, the heat was relentless, in the high 90s by 9 a.m.
The Gila was recognized early as this very special kind of wilderness area. In fact, it was the first wilderness area designated officially by the United States, because it's identified as isolated and pristine. That whole area is just covered by volcanic kind of rock, which makes very dramatic kind of landscapes, eroded pinnacles and also vast open plateaus.
I broke the ride into 2 days, and the first day I targeted a stream at the bottom of a canyon with potential water and shade. I left Silver City at 4 a.m. and after 65 grueling miles, I made it to the stream around noon. I wasn't alone though. JC and his friend were there, stuck with a flat tire. JC has lived most of his colorful life on the road, and it turns out he's also a singer-songwriter.
She raised a boy all alone. Father ran away. Then the Lord did call her. Now she's in the grave. She's laying in the ground. In the grave she lay, and her boy became a man. A man in just a day.
After hanging out with JC for a few hours, I pushed on for another 25 miles and camped in the wilderness under a full sky of stars. I was pedaling again by 5 a.m., and I then rode 100 miles straight to the Toaster House in Payton, a legendary place on the Divide for hikers and bikers. Turns out one of the hikers is a professional violinist, and she had brought her fiddle with her. The next morning we made music using some of the haikus I wrote as part of Michael Udow's composition. The music, the biking, and the trail community all coincided into one special sonic divide moment.
Harsh landscape quiets the mind. Life clings desperate. The wind whispers death. The sands sing extremes, heat stupor to racing storms, skylit bolt of peace. Savage is Gila, the canyon's a crucible of God's wrath and grace.
Zombadi, zombadi, rumba, zombadi, rumba, zombadi, zombadi, rumbadi, zombadi, zombadi, rumbadi, zombadi, 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 rumbada, zombada. Nabadadi,
The immense peace that comes over us in the tranquility of nature, in the middle of the woods, on liquid, moonlit summer nights, appeared even closer to him in this quiet gaze, this noble, solemn face.
Bicycle riding off pavement is nothing new. There's the Rough Stuff Fellowship of Great Britain, which I think in the 1950s, since the 1950s, has been riding off pavement on footpaths and dirt tracks. Going back another half century to 1897, we have the Buffalo Soldiers of the 25th Infantry Corps bicycling from Fort Missoula to St. Louis in a two-wheeled military experiment. And a couple decades before that, we had Thomas Stevens jouncing across America on his penny farthing, his high wheeler. And these are just three examples of many. It's true that the dedicated mountain bike didn't exist until the late 1970s, but the concept and application of mountain biking or bike packing is much older than that. In fact, it's the original type of original style of bicycle travel. The Tour Divide, as the race is known, the self-supported race held annually on the Great Divide, has probably brought more attention to the Great Divide mountain bike route than any other one thing, even promotions by Adventure Cycling. So I like that the race exists, and I'm impressed by the riders that undertake it. But I'm no less impressed by people who ride who tour the route and go out slow. I think that they're more in line with taking it slow and camping along the way and cooking meals is what we had in mind originally for like backpacking on a bicycle. I hope that some of the people who raced the route have covered it that covered it in 2 or 3 weeks go back out there and tour the route, and they may be surprised by what they missed on their first trip through.
All right, you roll into towns, you get hungry, so that's what's left of the pizza. And these are my buddies Alex and Brian. And we're hanging out and eating pizza and drinking beer. We're, after a long day on the divide, slamming it down.
Gate para sangate bodhisvaha. Gate para sangate bodhisvaha.
While I was in college, I also started learning the classical music of North India. At first, I studied tabla drumming with the great Pandit Sharda Sahai. After his unfortunate passing in 2011, I redirected my energy into Indian vocal music, and since then, I've been learning from the legendary Gundecha brothers. Now I spend about half my time professionally performing as an Indian vocalist and the other half of my time as a Western percussionist. With the continental divide, water flows either west or east. And that provides a really powerful metaphor for what I do every single day as a musician, with Western percussion or East Indian classical vocal music.
So the music I write kind of works between the cultures of American concert music, Western music, and then Indian and Hindustani music. So I come from both cultures. I was, born and raised in America, but my heritage is Indian. And so I really like to kind of draw these elements from both cultures into my music and write music that's very characteristically me in that it's from it just draws things that I love about these both cultures together.
Just this massive expanse of space. And this piece is really based on raga music from India, which I also think of as music that's just vast in its potential and what one person can do. I mean, you would need 20 lifetimes to even scratch the surface of raga music, which is one of the most beautiful things about it.
Payton's unique combination of gifts inspired me to want to really focus on the vocal aspect of drumming, which means drum language. So I utilized the syllables of the South Indian drum language that I'm familiar with and combined that with some rhythms that I felt Payton would be able to be interested in and have fun with. And those rhythms really connect up with the idea of the title, which is rotations, and the way that rhythms flow over cycles, rhythm cycles that Payton's very familiar with, and that we utilize all the time in Indian drumming of various kinds.
Mi, ta, ka, di, mi, ta, ka, di, mi, ta, ka, di, mi, ta, ka, di, mi. Ho, nakateri kita taka dum tak dum takati mi takita dum tak dum tari kita taka dum tak dum takata kita dum tak dum takati mi dum tak dum takita dum tak dum takadum tak dum pako takateri taka dum tak dum takati dum tak dum tarigera taka dum tak dum tarigera taka dum tak dum takati dum tak dum tarigera taka dum tak dum taka dum tak dum takadum. Ho! Yeah! Woo! That was awesome.
My father's from India, my mother is American, and in having me, they sort of created a hybrid, and I grew up having hybrid cultural experiences like many Indian Americans, and so I feel that it naturally comes out of my music. That being said, I have made certain decisions to make that happen. So I'm really interested in trying to discover the fundamental aspects of Hindustani music, of Western music, jazz, things like that. What's really going on sonically, and how can I use these aspects in my own music?
Sa ni pa ma ga, sa ni pa ma ga, sa ni pa ma ga, sa ni sa ga ma pa ma ga. Pa ma ga pa ni pa ni ma 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 ga ni sa ga ma pa ni pa ni ma pa ni sa ni pa ma ga. Pa ma ga sa ni sa ga ma pa ni pa.
Colorado was starkly different than New Mexico. All of a sudden, it became social hour as I started meeting up with the racers coming from the north. There were also more cars, more towns, and some family friends who hail from Australia met me on the road, holding a big sign. To top it all off, my wife Jessica came out to meet me. I took a few days off to back up my video data and get ready for the second half of the trip. The time off was wonderful, but it was also complicated. As I quickly sunk back into creature comforts, my confidence level about the whole project plummeted. I felt that the athletic aspect of the adventure was overshadowing the musical part, and I worried that all the music performances were of low quality and would be useless in the film. Someone suggested I give up on the cycling and rent a car and drive to the divide crossing so I had more energy for the performances and the filming.
I mean, basically the crux of the problem is that the mountain biking is so difficult in terms of the lack of surfaces and the slowness of the riding because of the riding surfaces. And it consumes so much of my mental and kind of spiritual energy that it just leaves me virtually no energy to make music at the level that I'm used to doing it.
Yeah. Well, that's what I noticed the past few days we've been filming, that it's been hard for you to perform up to level, and you haven't felt...
Yeah. I mean, especially when I'm recording stuff, I want to do 3, 4, 5 takes of it.
Yeah,
you know,
but
sometimes the first take I got to get kind of warmed up and get my head back into piece because I haven't, 30 pieces is a lot of music.
Yeah.
So...
That's a lot of time.
It's a lot of time,
and sometimes that throws you off the schedule.
When you're burning time out there and you're watching the clock because the sun's getting ever higher in the sky and hotter, and you have limited amounts of food and water. I mean, if I had a SAG vehicle the whole time, it'd be a piece of cake, but
yeah,
I don't. I'm on my own, and so...
It's hard. I mean, we ran into that guy coming southbound today, and he looked cooked. And he's not carrying cameras and audio gear and mallets and performing
all the riders
pieces.
are cooked, whether they're touring or racing, whether they're going 30 miles a day or 200 miles a day, they're all cooked.
Yeah.
It's so freaking hard.
After struggling with that for a few hours, I realized that it would be way too complicated. And, most importantly, I felt that the spiritual center of the journey would be lost if I didn't do it under my own power. I decided to take my chances with the footage and just keep going. Even if none of it was worth anything, at least I had challenged myself and tried for something big and unique, and that alone was worth the struggle.
It's hard with so little oxygen.
My name is Stuart Saunders Smith. I'm a composer. I was once a percussionist. I was born in Portland, Maine in 1948, which makes me entering in the old fella range.
What's interesting is this little phrase, well, here, I'll play it for you. It's, whoops, I missed a note. But anyway, that's it. But I've probably spent 30 minutes working on it. Which is a lot of time for a phrase that goes by in like less than a second. But it's kind of fascinating. That's what's interesting, is figuring out why I'm missing notes.
To not dedicate my life to it, I would have had to discover something that was more fulfilling and something that I wanted to do more, and that's just not out there. I mean, music's it.
It only took me a month to complete the actual Sonic Divide event, but the training and practicing took decades, and this is one of the primary ways that creative music connects with ultra-endurance cycling. Practicing and training gives structure and meaning to an artist's and an athlete's life. It's a daily meditation that involves every aspect of our being. My music practicing involved memorizing the specific notes of each piece, but also keeping my technique in top form so that my improvising was free and strong. My athletic training involved a variety of activities, including physical therapy to keep my body balanced. I also spent time getting fit for my bike, which made a huge difference in my efficiency and comfort level. Then there was hike-a-bike in the snow, snowshoeing, yoga, hiking, swimming, and of course, endless hours on the bike. But the best preparation was when I combined those activities, riding for hours on end, and then stopping somewhere beautiful to sing and drum.
Climbs are, I feel like, the time to really think about like what you're doing out there, because it's like almost like a time to reflect. Like, it's this slow, repetitive motion, and you know you're going to be out, whatever, 3-4 hours, 15-mile climb. It's like like that's kind of like all that's on your mind. So it's like you know what's ahead. So it became like a time for reflection in a lot of ways. Like I would kind of power down and like just think about like why I was out there, what I was doing, or like even life questions, or like it was just a time to reflect. I feel like a lot of time.
When's the top coming?
Yeah, when's the top coming? You're looking at the odometer.
Yeah.
And then of course, then lots of times, I mean myself, I just start almost like wanting to laugh because everybody's suffering. And you look back, there's somebody suffering there's somebody ahead of you suffering. And it's,
Well, today
the climbs are enjoyable.
Today was Stemple Pass, and what are the stats on that? But
Stemple.
But it was like straight uphill.
Yeah.
And unforgiving would be a good way to describe that.
If you ride the Great Divide mountain bike route, you'll climb from border to border over 180,000 vertical feet, which is basically like climbing up Mount Everest 6 times. So you spend a lot of time climbing, and some of those climbs are as long as 25 miles. When you're out there doing that, you're climbing up a hill, I mean, what's going through your mind?
Head down, get to the next town, really. I mean, you're just booking it as hard as you can. I mean, like you said, we don't really have to get anywhere at any point. We're kind of doing it more for the fun and the adventure than the race. So if we have to go into 0 gear or walk the bike, we're totally fine with that.
Sometimes people want to know if I ever walk my bike up the hills. And the answer is, oh yes, quite a lot actually.
You're pedaling and really having to barely maintain your balance on the bike at 4 miles an hour when you can get off and very wisely stretch out a lot of the long muscles in the body. So we get off on the steepest of the hills.
I have a few things that kind of go on repeat. It's usually, fuck this, why am I doing this? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And then I'm like, well, I'm already on it, I'm not giving up.
The uphills are, they're grueling, but well worth the effort. I couldn't imagine doing it on a motorbike, put it that way.
Yeah, you don't appreciate it.
Exactly.
You appreciate it after you've done that climb.
Yeah.
You appreciate the downhill.
And when you're doing the downhill, I mean, you're not paying attention to the terrain as much as when you're doing the climb.
Right.
I mean, that's when you're getting down with nature. When you're climbing,
totally,
because you're going 2 miles an hour, 3 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Maybe 4 miles an hour. That's when you're in the zone.
Okay, I am at Indiana Pass. This is the highest point on the entire Great Divide mountain bike route. This is one of the fun things about this ride is you work so hard for hours and hours to get to the top of these summits. And then you check and make sure everything on the bike is tightened and battened down. And then you drop in and let it rip.
And then you get to the top and we're humming the Rocky Balboa song.
What goes up goes down, so we know on the other side we're going to drop like the proverbial stone and just rock it down the hills.
Yeah, it doesn't get any better.
Yeah, just rock.
Os rios me atravessam, os rios me atravessam. E a cevada
It's a clear mind. I'm just howling the whole way.
e a ceva volta, Deus amando.
things kind of go quiet in your head, and you just kind of look around and realize, like, I don't know, man. Yeah, it's amazing.
Aloha, I'm Nita Laurent, and we're in Payton, New Mexico at the Toaster House. Well, I bought this house in 1981. I had 3 children. And I was gardening in the front yard, and somebody walked by with quite a large pack on. They used to be big. And I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm hiking the Continental Divide." And I was really blessed by buying a house right on the trail. Right in front of my house is the Continental Divide Trail.
Trail magic is when you're hiking or biking along and someone does something really nice for you that really makes your day a lot better. And wow, I have had so much trail magic on this tour, on this Sonic Divide adventure. It's been amazing. I mean, I knew the music would be great. I knew the cycling would be amazing, the scenery. I knew I would meet a lot of nice people, but I didn't realize how profound that part of the experience would be.
Meeting adventurers that are on their way and have been places and share their stories, and I just like meeting people, gathering them. Yeah, I think that's been the best part, is the people.
I like the people that I meet along the way that are from all over the planet and end up on my porch hanging out. It's fun. Yeah, there's crazy stories all the time. There's people exhausted on the porch that can't make words, and you know, there's the guy who showed up touring one day and I gave him a hug. I give them all a hug when they show up. So he showed up, I gave him a hug, and he just burst into tears and cried for like 2 hours. Sat on the deck, had his whole emotional wringing out, got back on his bicycle and looked like $1 million. But he had a couple-hour total meltdown, and he came out of it looking much better.
Another amazing thing happened. I struck up a conversation with this woman there. We really had a nice time talking. Her name is Josie. And then she got up and left. And then I finished my meal and I called for the check. And the waitress said Josie paid for it. I said, "What?" She said, "Yeah, she took care of it." So I wrote her a little thank you note, but man, that was such a nice thing to do. Just, she didn't need to do that. Just very generous, really nice thing to do, especially because I ordered 2 breakfasts, eggs Benedict and pancakes.
All right, I'm Tom Arnone. I'm a retired Air Force B-52 pilot, and moved here to Montana with my family in 1972 when I retired, and we raised 5 children. And well, you meet people from different parts of the world, and you know, we give them a beer and they give us themselves, and so it's just a great exchange. And we haven't met a bad person yet. They're all wonderful people.
There were a lot of things that I was taking care of at home. First of all, just maintaining the home. We have 2 young children, 6 and 8 years old, and it happened to coincide with end of year. So getting the kids to school, taking care of the house, mowing the lawn, going to all the end of year activities and kindergarten graduation. Then there was the logistical support, making all the reservations, and some support of Payton on the trail in terms of publicity. I was helping him contact some newspaper editors and trying to help them meet up with Payton, and anybody who needed to get in touch with Payton but couldn't because he was on the trail would get in touch with me, helping a little bit with the campaign for raising some money. And then, of course, supporting Payton himself on the trail, because I was lucky enough, because I'm his wife, that I got to talk to him and, have the closest contact to him. But finding a fine line between, like really supporting him, trying to figure out what he needs and support that physically is easy, but emotionally it was a little bit more difficult, because as he was adapting to the trail, it was hard. You get a call and he's in a really bad headspace, and I don't want to encourage him to quit, but I can't put my needs on him either, so I have to back off on everything that I might need in terms of just a normal husband-wife relationship and just really focus on what Payton needs. And it's not always easy.
Wyoming is a powerful experience. This tremendous sense of exposure, that you are out there in the elements, and the elements are not built for you. They're not made for you as a human being. And so you're sort of on your own, and you're there at the willingness of luck and fate to not kill you.
The Great Divide Basin is unique in that it kind of like bifurcates the Continental Divide. It does split there and makes this kind of little island of a basin surrounded by Continental Divide. So it's just, as it is now, isolated by several other surrounding mountain ranges, and there is no external drainage to it that goes to any of the oceans. It just drains internally, and it being dry that it is, it doesn't fill with a lake.
I left the town of Wamsutter at 2:00 a.m. at the southern border of the Great Basin. My plan was to ride through the early morning hours and hopefully avoid the infamous heat and headwinds that occur in the Great Basin in the afternoon. As I pedaled away from twinkling lights and creature comforts, my stomach was in knots. What was I doing pedaling into a 100-mile stretch of remote desert in the middle of the night by myself? But as the town lights finally disappeared, I noticed that the sky was completely full of stars and there was a full moon. In fact, it wasn't so dark after all. My fear melted and was replaced by awe and a deep feeling of peace. It was one of the most profound moments of my life, and it was a powerful metaphor for so much of the sonic divide. Fear was at every corner, but that night, completely alone in the wilderness, with the stars and full moon inspiring me, I realized once and for all that I was so much stronger than I ever imagined, and that the synthesis of creative music, film, endurance cycling, and nature was deeply powerful and would carry me all the way to the Canadian border and far, far beyond.
Dawn on the Great Divide Basin, and it's absolutely amazing. Look at this. Just vast expanse. Unbelievable.
The first Justice of the Peace ever, female Justice of the Peace, was in South Pass City. So we're talking about 50 years before women had the right to vote in the United States. We had a judge, a female judge, in Wyoming, which is sort of crazy when you think about it, because at the time, the population of Wyoming was something like 80% male. So I think this is a really rich and complex and beautiful story. And when I learned this story, it was like, oh, for sure, this is the piece I need to write. So the way I thought about making the piece for Payton to perform was that it would feel sort of like an invocation to Esther, that he's singing this little song, sort of a simple song, in her honor, in her place.
Esther Hobart Morris, doe of the Wyoming dawn. Esther, Esther, milliner and mother, a consecrated woman standing strong. Esther Hobart Morris, you are my morning star, abolitionist and suffragette, succeeding ugly bigot Justice Bar. Esther, show me justice. Esther, bestow your peace. I'm longing for your wisdom, unfurled from west to east. You're what justice looks like, the justice of my peace. An enacted female standing tall.
Sometimes day after day after day, sometimes your body just says, you know what, man, I'm not gonna do it. You try as hard as you want, but we're gonna just poke along. So this is a slow climb to the pass, but when I get there, I'm gonna perform Elliot Sharp's piece, and I'm super excited about that. Elliot is one of my great heroes and inspirations, and also I've had the opportunity to collaborate with him on a few occasions, which was really inspiring. So I was really honored that he wrote this piece with a very cool title, Long Division. Yes, Elliot, the divide is long, on and on and on. Okay, I think I'm actually at this point rambling. I'm not really saying anything of substance. But Elliot Sharp's music is of substance. Elliot Sharp is an incredible musician, so I'm pretty stoked to play his music. Okay, I'm gonna sign off. Okay, actually, no, I'm gonna keep talking. No, just kidding. You know, I'm just up here by myself in the wilderness. Woo! Yeah! So I can just keep talking. Hey, Billy Bear, how you doing over there, buddy?
It's a score that was created by using feedback in Photoshop on musical material that I started with notating in Sibelius. I took a very simple gesture that I wrote out in Sibelius and subjected it to filters in Photoshop, very much the way one might process audio in real time using a computer or hardware. And instead I did it to the score itself and generated this, you could say it's a pictogram or an icon for Payton to work from. I was thinking a lot about the various aspects of what Payton was going to be putting into his marathon bicycle trip, both physically and sonically, metaphysically, all the LYs that you could imagine. And of course the bicycle image of the wheel was very much in my mind when I made the score.
When Payton asked me to write a piece for his Sonic Divide project, I very quickly realized that I wanted to create a piece that he could perform somewhere in Wyoming at one of the higher elevation points in Wyoming. I realized it would probably be best served at Togati Pass, which is at nearly 10,000 feet. The piece I wanted to create for him would be one where he very simply did something in the work that I have been doing every day of my life for the last 30 plus years, which is very simply and quietly each morning I pay homage to the 6 directions: west, north, east, south, the above and below, the sky and earth. In the piece that I did for Payton, I wanted him to do that as well through a musical formal structure that I created, whereby he does this within a large circle that he delineates on the earth wherever he is at Togati Pass, and then moves within that circle in a way where at each direction he turns, comes around, turns, and then comes back to the west and sings a song for the west, goes to the north, sings a song for the north, goes to the east, sings a song to the east, goes to the south, sings a song for the south, goes to the center, looks above, sings, chants, looks below, sings, chants, and then exits that circle. It's a very ritualistic work whereby Payton, when he performs it, he's replicating what I, like I said, do every morning of my life, which is to acknowledge the 6 directions.
Hey. Ho! Hey. Ha! 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 Hey. Ho! 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 Ah! Yeah!
Well, when I started composing in 1970, of course, that was how you did it. And although it was not just pencil, you used ink. So it was quite a labor-intensive process. But even though labor-intensive, I got really enamored of doing what I'm doing right now, just sitting with blank paper, a tool in my right hand, a tool in my left hand, and creating then my scores right on paper directly. So starting from blank page, and then by the end of that page, it's filled with things that I created with using both of my hands.
One of the questions that I've struggled with a lot throughout my life as a creative musician is whether what I'm doing is really necessary for society. I mean, it's obvious that we need doctors, but do we need creative musicians?
It's crucial because what we want to do in our music, in our performing, is offer the audience the chance for what religious people call epiphany, a moment where all of a sudden a door opens to a room that people didn't know existed before. And they go in this room and they see this object and that object, and it's like a magic moment where they're on a magic mountain overlooking a vista they never knew existed. That is so important in people's lives and enriches them. And it's what music has done since the very dawn of time.
Re re sa sa pa ma ma sa ga ma pa da pa ga ma sa pa sa. Re re sa sa pa ma ma sa ga ma pa da pa ga ma sa pa sa. Sa sa pa da sa 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 re. Sa ni da pa sa sa ni da pa sa.
I don't know what would happen to the planet if there were no music. I don't know if that has ever happened, even for half a second. I think of projects like
the Times Square installation by Max Neuhaus that is going every single day for decades. And in my darkest moments, I think of that and how important that is, that vibration continues.
I think art is both a reflection of society and affects how society develops.
I think human beings are creative by nature. You know, when you read something like the beginning of the Bible where you've got God creating this and this and this, then finally the last thing is God creates man in his own image. So the creator is creating a creative, right? And so for me, it just sort of follows that once you have your basic needs taken care of, you know, your food and your shelter and your companionship, if you go down to sort of Maslow's needs hierarchy, as soon as we've got all that solved, we start creating, we start drawing things and making things. It's just so innate. And when one among us makes something really beautiful, everyone turns to it and goes, oh, it touches them in a way. And it ideally doesn't diminish their individual need to create, but it solves something for them. It gives them something that otherwise wouldn't exist on the planet.
I am alone on the summit of a mountain.
It has tangible effects on society.
Looking down on a sea of clouds. Nothing but the pale morning satin of snow, and the clouds shifting silently as the earth. Egeshen, Weasel Naikande, Ne Sikiban, Gewa Gagate. Egeshen, Weasel Naikande, Ne Sikipan, Dewa Gagate.
Yesterday was a huge day. I crossed into Montana. I did a performance of Tom Hassenflug's piece, which I think went really well. It took over an hour though. It was a lot of messing around to get it right. And then I pedaled to the top of this pass and I did a performance of Stuart Saunders Smith's piece, Echo, which I also think went pretty well. But that also took over an hour. And it was a great hour. I mean, I really enjoyed it. Although it was tough to sing because I was getting swarmed by these biting black flies the whole time. It was really difficult. Anyway, then I came down the pass and I was officially in Montana at that point, and after about an hour or two I just got slammed by this huge storm. It was, I guess, Montana's way of welcoming me.
Shanti, 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 Shanti.
I still have 650 miles to pedal. Oh, man. This is not an easy project.
When I was imagining Payton alone on this excursion, I knew that he was going to be seeing the most extraordinary landscapes. But I was wondering, what was he going to be hearing and what was going to be contributing to the sonic landscape of his memory over the course of this trip. So I decided to tap into that memory and to use an ancient combinatorial technique of combining disparate elements to help jog the memory. And I was hoping that through the score I made, which is a kinetic score that moves, I was hoping that the score itself would help Payton tap into those memories so he could remember what was the first sound I heard on that first day? What is the last sound I heard before I fell asleep? Did I hear human activity? Did I hear airplanes? And I was also thinking about the impact of humans on the environment and what would he encounter along the way. I knew he would hear bird song and insect communication and things like that, but was he hearing other hikers? Was he hearing the exhaust from RVs? And that's what I was curious about.
I pressed on, and finally about 9:30 at night I stopped after riding 100 miles. So I'd been going since 4:30 in the morning. 2 performances, 100 miles. And I put my tarp against this fence, and man, the sky just looked really bad. I thought I was gonna get poured on, but as it turned out, it cleared out, and I got lucky. Well, I made it. I didn't expect to be so emotional, but it all just kind of came out in a flood. Wow, I never thought I could do something like this. It's a big accomplishment for me. And for everyone who supported me. It was a team effort, it really was, from the start. Here it is. The boundary. There's the bike. Woo! It's amazing. Oh, and special thanks to my assistant, Jamie, here. Unfortunately, I couldn't carry him with me on the trail, but he's here today. Pretty light. So here we go. This is Billy Martin's piece.
There's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's sunshine when it rains. There's hope and love and darkness and pain. There's a light at the this far to walk away. So hold on and dance your way through the dark. This is who you are. This is who you are. I'm passing through the storm. I'm drowning in the wake. I feel that tug and pull. I'm on my way. So hold on and dance your way through the dark. This is who you are. 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 This is who I am. This is who you are. This is who I am. This is who I am. This is who you are. Hold on and dance your way through the dark. This is who you are. Hold on and dance your way through the dark. This is who you are. This is who you are. There's a light at the end of the tunnel.